My sister Brittany has this gift. She can ruin a room without raising her voice. She just smiles, says something cute, and lets everyone else do the damage. That's how it started at my cousin Emily's wedding. I arrived at the venue a little late, because my flight got in behind schedule, and the rental car line moved like it was being powered by a hamster. I'd changed in the airport bathroom, smoothed my hair in the mirror, like that would fix anything, and drove straight to the reception. The place was one of those renovated barns that cost more than my first car, and comes with string lights as a personality. There was a big wooden sign near the entrance that said, "Happily Ever After." Brittany should have been standing next to it selling lies by the pound. I walked in and spotted Emily right away, glowing like she hadn't been stress sweating over seating charts for the last 6 months. She ran over and hugged me so tight my ribs complained. "You made it," she said like she'd been holding her breath. "Wouldn't miss it," I told her. I had to threaten a TSA agent with my worst small talk, but I got here. She laughed, then pulled back and looked at me with that worried expression people get when they know your family is your biggest hazard. "You okay?" she asked quietly. "I'm fine," I said, which in my family is basically a prayer. I found my seat card and felt my stomach dip. Table 12, way in the back, not near Emily, not near the people I actually like. It was basically the witness protection program for relatives. I didn't blame Emily. I knew exactly who did it. Brittany floated over before I could even set my clutch down. She looked perfect, of course. Hair done, makeup, done dress, expensive enough to make you feel guilty for breathing near it. "There she is," Brittany said, like she was announcing a celebrity who'd fallen off. "Our little Navy girl." I smiled. "Hi, Britt." Her eyes flicked down to my dress. Navy blue, simple, nothing dramatic. I didn't come to outshine the bride. Also, I didn't have the energy. "This is very you," she said, tilting her head. "It's giving office. It's giving wedding guest," I said. She laughed, but it wasn't the kind that reaches your eyes. Then she leaned in like she was sharing a secret. "Just a heads up," she said. "Try not to do the whole Navy thing tonight. People are here for Emily and Ryan, not, you know." She waved her hand vaguely in my direction, like my entire life was a weird hobby. I nodded. "Don't worry, I'm not here to recruit anyone." "Good," she said brightly. "Because last time you talked about work, Aunt Carol asked me if you drive the boat." I stared at her. "Aunt Carol thinks the ocean has lanes." Brittany's smile widened. "Exactly, so let's keep it light." Then she walked away, already scanning the room for her next audience. I sat down at table 12 with people I recognized only by DNA. A second cousin I'd met once at a funeral. A great aunt who smelled like perfume and opinions. A guy who looked like he'd rather be trapped in traffic than make conversation. They all did that polite thing, where they smile, then immediately look for someone more interesting. "So, Megan, my great aunt," said, dragging my name out like it had lint on it. "Brittany tells us you work at the base." I kept my face neutral. "I'm in the Navy, yes." She nodded slowly. "Doing what exactly?" "Submarines," I said. Her eyebrows jumped. "Oh, like paperwork for submarines." I took a sip of water. "Something like that." That was my first mistake. In my family, any opening becomes a full-blown performance. Across the room, Brittany had already formed a little circle. I watched her lean in hand on her chest, laughing like she was telling the funniest story anyone had ever heard. Then I heard my name. Not loud, but loud enough. The kind of loud that's meant to travel. "Megan's always been so intense," Brittany said. "She'll tell you she's doing submarine stuff, but it's mostly base work. You know how it is. Someone's got to do the schedules." Someone in her group laughed. I stared straight ahead like I hadn't heard it. My jaw tightened anyway. Emily's mom walked by and gave me a sympathetic look. She didn't stop. Nobody ever stops. In my family, stepping in is considered rude. Public humiliation is fine as long as it's funny. Dinner happened. Speeches started. Ryan's parents spoke, then Emily's mom. People clapped, cried, dabbed at their eyes, told sweet stories. The room softened. It almost felt safe. And then my dad stood up. Frank Caldwell. He's the kind of man who loves the military in theory. Flags, parades, slogans. He'll thank strangers for their service in the grocery store, but forget to ask his own kid how she's doing. He tapped his glass with a fork. The room quieted. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, smiling like he was about to bless us with wisdom. "I just want to say how proud we are of Emily and Ryan." Polite applause. And Ryan Dad continued, turning toward the groom. "You're the real deal. Navy officer. Submarines. That takes guts. It's real service. Ryan nodded, respectful. He looked like a good guy. Calm, steady. The type who doesn't need to be the loudest person in the room to be taken seriously. Dad lifted his glass. And you know, he said, chuckling, we've got another Navy person in the family. My stomach sank before he even said it. He pointed right at me with his glass. There she is, Dad announced. My daughter Megan. Every head turned, like I was being spotlighted. I felt heat rush up my neck. I forced a small smile because that's what you do when you don't want to cause a scene at someone else's wedding. Dad kept going. Megan likes to tell people she's in the Navy too, he said, smiling wider. But she's not exactly doing what Ryan does. A few people laughed. Not mean laughter, more like confused laughter. The kind people do when they're not sure if something's funny, but they don't want to be the one sitting there like a statue. Brittany's laugh was the loudest. Dad shrugged like he was being humble on my behalf. She works at the base, he said. Desk job kind of stuff. Paperwork schedules. You know. Important, I guess, but not exactly the glamorous side. I sat perfectly still, hands folded in my lap, feeling like my chair was sinking into the floor. Someone at my table murmured, awkward. I wanted to disappear. I also wanted to grab his microphone and explain a few things. But I didn't. I stayed right where I was because Emily deserved one night without my family turning everything into a cage match. Dad raised his glass higher. So here's to Emily and Ryan, he said. May your marriage be full of the honor and dedication that real service requires. The room echoed the toast. Glasses clinked. People smiled. The band started up again, and I sat there watching my own father publicly shrink my entire life into a punchline, while my sister practically sparkled with satisfaction. That was the moment I decided I was leaving early. I pushed my chair back carefully, quietly. No drama, no announcement, just a clean exit. As I stood up, someone stepped into the edge of my space. It was Ryan. He didn't smile like a wedding guest. He looked focused, almost tense, like he'd just heard something he couldn't ignore. Ma'am, he said quietly, the word coming out like habit, not politeness. Could I speak with you for a second? He wasn't asking like a cousin-in-law making small talk. He was asking like someone who knew exactly what he was doing. Ryan nodded toward a side hallway near the doors. Just for a minute, he said. I followed him, trying to keep my face calm, even though my heart was hitting my ribs like it wanted out. My feet kept moving down the side hallway, but my brain was still stuck on my dad's glass, pointing at me like I was a joke with a dress on. Ryan stopped near a service door, where the music faded into a muffled thump. The light back there was dimmer, the air cooler, like the building itself knew this conversation didn't belong on the dance floor. He turned to face me, and hesitated for half a second, like he was deciding whether to say what he was about to say. Commander Caldwell, he asked quietly. I didn't answer right away. My first instinct was to shut it down, smile politely, and pretend I misheard him. The second instinct was worse, to ask him why he was calling me that, when I'd spent years making sure nobody in my family ever did. So I went with the only option that wouldn't make me look like I was auditioning for a daytime talk show. Yes, I said. Ryan's shoulders lowered a little, like he'd been holding his breath. Okay. Thank you. I didn't want to be wrong. You're Ryan, I said, studying him. Ryan Parker? His face flickered. Yes, ma'am. That, ma'am, wasn't a wedding thing. That was a muscle memory thing. I exhaled through my nose. How do you know me? He rubbed the back of his neck. This is going to sound crazy because you're... you. And I'm standing here in a tux. Welcome to my night, I said. Ryan gave a quick, tense smile. I'm the engineering officer on New Hampshire. We've been in a few joint briefs with your team over the last year. I kept my face still, but my stomach tightened. That was real. That was specific. That wasn't some guy trying to impress his new in-laws with military buzzwords. You didn't recognize me, I said. Not at first, he admitted. You look different out of uniform, and your hair is down. But when your dad said your name, it clicked. And then he started talking like... He stopped himself, like he didn't want to insult my father at his new wife's cousin's wedding. The man had manners. My family could borrow some. Like I'm a receptionist, I offered. Ryan's jaw tightened. Yes, ma'am. I held up a hand. Stop with the ma'am. We're at a wedding. If anyone hears you, it'll turn into a whole thing. He nodded quickly. Understood. Sorry, it's habit. It's fine, I said. It's just not helpful tonight. Ryan looked past me toward the reception hall. Does your family really not know what you do? They know I'm Navy, I said. They've just... Decided what that means. He frowned. But your dad just told a room full of people you do paperwork. Yeah, I said flat, he did. Ryan didn't laugh. He looked genuinely rattled, like he'd stepped into a situation that didn't match the story he'd been handed. Commander, he said again, softer this time. Why would he say that? I stared at the wall for a moment because if I looked at Ryan while answering that question, I might accidentally tell the truth with my whole face. It didn't start tonight, I said finally. Tonight was just the public version. Ryan waited. He wasn't pushing, but he wasn't letting me dodge either. So I gave him the short, clean version. The version that fit in a hallway between a wedding and a family implosion. Brittany has been telling people I'm basically a glorified admin for years, I said. She says it like it's helpful, like she's translating my life into something everyone can understand. And your dad believes her, Ryan asked. My dad believes what's comfortable, I said. And what's comfortable is the idea that I didn't really make it. Ryan's eyes narrowed. But you did make it. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was so simple when a stranger said it. Yeah, I said I did. Ryan looked like he wanted to say more, but I cut him off before he could turn into a one-man awards ceremony. This stays between us, I said. I'm serious. His eyebrows rose. Ma Megan, why? Because it's Emily's wedding, I said. Because she doesn't deserve to have my family turn her reception into a courtroom. Ryan's mouth tightened. Your family already turned it into something. I ignored that. And because the second my sister realizes you know she'll make it about her, she'll act like I'm trying to embarrass her. She'll cry or yell or call me arrogant. And then my mom will beg me to apologize to keep the peace. Ryan stared at me. That's specific. It's predictable, I said. He glanced toward the door again, like he could hear Brittany's voice even through the walls. So your sister has been saying you're a desk job. Yes. And people believe her. Because it fits the role they already put me in, I said. The one where I'm the serious one who doesn't know how to relax, and Brittany is the fun one who keeps everyone together. Ryan's expression hardened. That's messed up. I shrugged. Welcome to the Caldwell family. We come with free guilt and zero refunds. Ryan let out a short breath, then lowered his voice. How long has she been doing this? Spreading the story. Years, I said, but she ramped it up recently. Recently, he repeated. I didn't want to say it because saying it made it real. Saying it meant Brittany hadn't just been casually annoying. She'd been preparing. But Ryan had already seen something was off. And I wasn't going to insult his intelligence by pretending this was a random slip of my dad's tongue. 3 weeks ago, I said, family group chat. Brittany started asking these little questions. So what do you actually do? Are you still at the base? Do you ever go underway? Stuff like that. Harmless on paper. But she kept doing it. Ryan's eyes sharpened, and people joined in. They always do, I said. They don't mean to. They think it's small talk. I paused, then added, Brittany also called my dad. I'm not guessing. My mom told me. Ryan's brows lifted. What did she say? Probably something like, Dad, I'm worried Megan's going to make the wedding about herself, I said. Or, she gets sensitive when people ask about her job, which is Brittany language for, let's poke her until she reacts. Ryan looked like he wanted to break something. He held it together because he was still technically at his own wedding. She wanted this to happen, he said. Yes, I said. The word landed hard, even in the quiet hallway. Ryan's voice dropped. Why would your sister do that at a wedding? Because it's a stage, I said. She didn't pick a random Tuesday. She picked a room full of people, a microphone, and a moment where no one would want to challenge her. Ryan stared at me for a long second. And you just take it? I met his gaze. I don't take it. I manage it. He looked confused. I've learned something the hard way, I said. If you fight Brittany, she wins, because then it becomes a scene. It becomes Megan overreacted, and the original lie gets forgotten. All anyone remembers is that I ruined the mood. Ryan's mouth tightened. That's not fair. I didn't say it was fair, I said. I said it's how it works. He ran his hand through his hair again, restless. So what do you want me to do? Nothing, I said immediately. He blinked. Nothing. Yes, I said. Smile. Dance. Be the groom. Let Emily have her night, and let my family think whatever they're going to think. Ryan didn't look convinced. He looked like a man trying to follow an order that went against his values. I can do that, he said slowly, but I'm not going to pretend I didn't hear what your dad said. You don't have to pretend I said. You just have to not correct him. Ryan stared at me, then nodded once tight and reluctant. Okay. I believed he meant it. I also knew Brittany. Brittany could smell restraint like a dog smells fear. From the other side of the service door, the music swelled again. The reception was rolling on without us, like nothing had happened. Like my dad hadn't just reduced my career to office supplies. Ryan put his hand on the door handle, then paused. "Commander Megan," he said. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry." I didn't thank him. Gratitude felt too close to permission, and I wasn't giving my family permission to make me small again. "It's fine," I said, even though it wasn't. Ryan opened the door, and the noise rushed back in loud and bright. I followed him out, putting the polite face back on like a mask I'd worn so long it almost fit. Across the room, Brittany was by the bar, with a little group laughing like she'd invented joy. When her eyes landed on us walking back together, her smile didn't fade, but it sharpened. She watched Ryan like he was a loose thread she couldn't wait to pull. Brittany's smile stayed glued on as we crossed the room, but I felt it tracking me like a laser pointer on a cat. Ryan drifted back toward Emily, doing the groom thing, shaking hands and accepting congratulations like he'd trained for it. I veered toward my table because I didn't trust myself near an open bar, and I definitely didn't trust Brittany near a microphone. I sat down and picked up my water again, like hydration could fix family dysfunction. My great-aunt leaned in. "What was that about?" she asked, eyes bright with the kind of curiosity that comes from living long enough to run out of hobbies. "Nothing," I said. "Just saying hello." She made a face that said she didn't buy it, but she also didn't care enough to press. She went right back to critiquing the chicken. I watched Brittany from across the room. She had her phone out now, tapping quickly, probably sending a message in the family group chat from 10 feet away. Brittany loved an audience, but she loved controlling the narrative even more. That's the thing people don't understand about my sister. She doesn't scream. She doesn't throw drinks. She doesn't do the soap opera stuff. She's smarter than that. Brittany plants a version of reality and lets it grow. And in my family, it grows fast because everyone's already holding the watering can. I could have shut it down years ago. I could have corrected people every time they called my job-based work or support. I could have pulled out my phone and said, "Actually, I'm an unrestricted line officer, submarine warfare qualified," and watched their faces do that blank thing people do when they realize they've been confidently wrong. But that wasn't how it played out in real life. In real life, you don't get one big heroic moment where everyone stops and applauds and says, "We're sorry, Megan, we misjudged you." In real life, you get eye rolls. You get sarcasm. You get, "Wow, okay, Captain America, calm down." So I stopped trying. It started back when I was 19 and got into the Naval Academy. My dad threw a party. Not a quiet family dinner either. A full-on backyard thing with burgers and flags, and him telling anyone who'd stand still long enough that his daughter was going to be an officer. He looked proud in a way I didn't see often. Brittany looked proud too at first. Or at least she looked like she wanted people to think she was proud. She posted photos with captions like, "My sister is going to serve our country." Then the attention shifted from her to me, and the temperature changed. The academy was hard. Not in a movie way. Hard in a real way, where your schedule doesn't care about your feelings, and your body feels like it belongs to the government. I came home on breaks exhausted and quiet, and Brittany would call it acting superior. I remember sitting at the kitchen table once, trying to eat a bowl of cereal in peace. Brittany walked in and said, "So do they teach you how to yell at people yet?" I didn't even look up. "They teach us how to listen," I said. She laughed like that was the funniest thing she'd ever heard. "Sure. You're going to be one of those." "One of what?" "One of those people who thinks their job makes them better." I said, "I'm literally just trying to finish my cereal." She rolled her eyes and walked away like I'd disappointed her by not starting a fight. And my dad, of course, heard about it later and said, "You don't have to be so sensitive. She's just joking." That became the family motto. She's just joking. She's just blunt. She's just being honest. Meanwhile, I was learning that the fastest way to lose in my family was to react. After I graduated and commissioned, I picked the submarine community. That decision alone turned into a whole thing. My dad acted like I'd told him I was moving to Mars. "Submarines," he said. "That's intense. Is that even appropriate for you?" "For me," I repeated. For a woman, he clarified like he was doing me a favor by saying the quiet part out loud. Brittany jumped in, smiling sweetly. "I mean, Dad's just worried. It's a tough world. Maybe you should pick something easier." I said I picked what I earned. Brittany's smile tightened. "There it is." My dad told everyone I was going into some kind of specialized program. He didn't say submarines again for months. It was like if he didn't name it, it wasn't real. When I earned my submarine warfare qualification, I called home. I was proud. Not look at me proud, just proud. My mom answered and she was happy for me in that soft way she has. Then she put my dad on the phone. He said, "So what is it, you got a pin?" "Yes," I said. "It's a big milestone." He paused, then said, "Okay, good." That was it. No questions, no interest. Just a quick good like I told him I changed my oil. Brittany texted me later. "Must be nice getting trophies for doing your job." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I deleted it. Over the years it got worse, not better. Not because my career was secret, because my career didn't match the story Brittany wanted to tell about me. At family events, if someone asked what I did, Brittany would answer first. "She works at the base," she'd say. If I tried to correct it, Brittany would make a face and go, "Okay, sure, whatever you say." If I stayed quiet, the moment passed. And then my dad would walk over later and say, "Why do you always have to make things awkward?" Me. Not Brittany, not the lie. Me. So I stopped correcting. I learned to make my life small in that room so I could keep the peace. The funny thing is, outside that room, my life was anything but small. I spent years learning a job that punishes ego and rewards competence. You don't get to be dramatic on a submarine. You don't get to slam a door and storm off. You learn to speak clearly, make decisions, own your mistakes, and keep people alive. You also learn to keep your mouth shut, not because you're ashamed, because you don't need noise to prove you exist. But there was another reason I didn't talk about work, and it had nothing to do with Brittany. It was the way my family treated anything I cared about, like it was up for debate. If I said I'd had a hard week, Brittany would say, "Well, you chose that." If I said I was tired, my dad would say, "Try working a real job." If I said I was proud of something, Brittany would laugh and say, "Okay, sure." After enough of that, you stop offering pieces of yourself to people who treat them like cheap samples at the grocery store. So I gave them less and less. I told them I was busy. I said work is fine. I asked about their lives and kept mine locked down. When you don't share, people fill in the blanks. And Brittany loved filling in blanks. She turned my silence into proof that I wasn't doing anything important. She turned my privacy into a punchline. She turned my absence into a character flaw. "Must be nice," she'd say whenever anyone mentioned my deployments or training. Like I was on vacation. My mom would try to soften it. "Brittany, stop." Brittany would shrug. "What, I'm just saying." And my dad would do that tired sigh like he was the victim of two difficult daughters. By the time I made commander and took command, I'd already stopped expecting my family to understand. I didn't need applause from them. I needed them to stop rewriting my life in front of me. Tonight at Emily's wedding, Brittany wasn't just rewriting, she was editing with a chainsaw. Across the room, I saw her angle her phone toward my table like she was taking a photo. Maybe she was texting, maybe she was recording. Brittany loved having receipts, even when the story was fake. Then I watched her slip behind my dad, lean in close, and whisper something in his ear. My dad's face changed. Not a lot, just enough. The corners of his mouth tightened, and he nodded once like he'd been given instructions. Brittany stepped back with that satisfied little look she gets when she knows she just moved a piece on the board. And that's when I realized she wasn't done. Not even close. I watched my dad nod at whatever Brittany whispered, and my stomach dropped like I'd missed a step on a staircase. You'd think I'd be used to it. I was. I just wasn't used to it happening at someone else's wedding with a DJ in a photo booth. I forced myself to breathe and stand up like I was just stretching my legs. If I stayed glued to my chair, Brittany would come to me. If I moved, at least, I could choose where the next hit landed. I walked toward the edge of the dance floor, staying out of the spotlight. Emily was in the middle of a group of friends, laughing, cheeks flushed the way a bride should look. I caught her eye and gave her a small smile so she wouldn't worry. She smiled back, relieved, and turned back to her friends. Good. Let her have that. I headed for the little hallway near the restrooms where it was quieter, and nobody tried to talk to you unless they needed a mint. I leaned against the wall for a second and let my shoulders drop. Then my mom appeared like she'd been summoned by tension. Linda Caldwell could sense conflict the way some people sense rain. She walked up with that careful smile that always meant, "Please don't make a scene, even if you're the one being attacked." "Honey," she said, smoothing her dress, "are you okay?" I looked at her and kept my voice even. "I'm fine." She didn't believe me, but she also didn't want me to say anything more. My mom didn't do problems. She did damage control. "Your dad," she began, then stopped. "What about him?" I asked. She winced. He shouldn't have said that. He shouldn't have said a lot of things, I replied. My mom's eyes flicked past me toward the reception hall. Brittany's just, you know how she is. There it was, the family motto again. I stared at her. Yeah, I do. My mom lowered her voice. She's been stressed. She's trying to help. Help who, I asked. She didn't answer because the answer was obvious and embarrassing. Help Brittany. Before my mom could keep defending the indefensible, a loud laugh exploded from the main hall. It had Brittany's signature all over it. Big and bright, meant to pull heads. My mom tensed. Please, she said softly. Just let it go tonight. I looked at her, and for a second, I wanted to say what I'd been wanting to say for 20 years. Why do I always have to be the one to let it go? But Emily's wedding was still happening 10 feet away, so I swallowed it. I'm leaving early, I told her. My mom's face tightened. Don't. People will notice. That's kind of the point, I said. Before she could respond, Brittany appeared holding 2 champagne flutes, like she was delivering peace offerings. Megan, she called, voice sweet and loud. There you are. My mom's shoulders lifted with panic. Brittany always showed up right when my mom tried to smooth things over, like she had a radar for private conversations. Brittany handed my mom a flute, then offered me the other one. I didn't take it. Brittany's smile stayed fixed. Oh, come on. Don't be weird. It's a wedding. I'm not drinking, I said. Brittany blinked dramatically. Wow, still intense. My mom cleared her throat. Brittany honey, maybe. Brittany cut her off, still smiling. I just wanted to check on her. She looked like she was going to cry earlier. I looked Brittany dead in the face. I wasn't. Brittany tilted her head. See that tone? You always do that. My mom shifted uncomfortably, clutching her champagne like it was a lifeline. Brittany leaned in closer, lowering her voice just enough to pretend it was private, but not enough to actually be private. I didn't mean anything by it, she said. Dad was just joking. Everybody knows you're Navy. Nobody cares about the details. That's funny, I said. You seem to care a lot. Brittany's eyes narrowed for half a second. Then she smiled wider. I care about Emily having a perfect night, and you know how you get when attention isn't on you. There it was. The accusation served cold and casual. My mom inhaled sharply. Brittany held up a hand, still smiling. It's okay, Mom. I'm just being honest. I felt my pulse thump in my ears, but I kept my voice calm. If you were being honest, you'd stop talking about me. Brittany laughed light and fake. See, you're so sensitive. People can't even joke around you. I stepped back. I'm going back in. Brittany moved with me, matching my pace like she was escorting me to my own humiliation. As we walked into the main hall, she raised her voice again. Not yelling, just projecting. Hey, Brittany called to a nearby cluster of relatives. Guess who's hiding in the hallway? A couple of heads turned. My uncle gave me a quick look, then looked away like he didn't want to get involved. Brittany held her flute up and grinned. Megan was about to sneak out early. Military life must have trained her to do quick exits. Some people chuckled, not everyone, but enough. I felt my jaw tighten. I kept walking, trying to act like I wasn't the main attraction in Brittany's little performance. We reached the area near the bar where Ryan had been earlier. He was across the room now, talking with some of Emily's relatives. He glanced over, and I saw his expression shift when he caught Brittany's tone. Brittany noticed too. Of course she did. Brittany never missed a camera angle. She took a step closer to me and said with just enough volume for a few tables to hear, Ryan seems like a nice guy. A real officer. He probably doesn't get to hear about the administrative side of the Navy much. I stopped walking. My mom's face went pale. She knew. She knew Brittany was about to cross a line. I turned to Brittany. Drop it! Brittany's smile turned playful, like I'd challenged her to a game. Drop what I'm complimenting you. I'm saying your work matters too. My mom whispered, Brittany, please. Brittany ignored her and lifted her voice again, aiming it like a spotlight. Ryan, she called out, waving her flute. Come here for a second. Ryan looked up surprised. He hesitated, then started walking over polite, because he's the groom, and he can't exactly pretend he didn't hear his name. Emily's eyes flicked over too. She looked confused, then uneasy. Ryan reached us, and Brittany beamed like she was doing him a favor. Ryan, you should hear about Megan's Navy job, she said. She does all this behind-the-scenes stuff at the base, like schedules and reports. It's honestly impressive in its own way. Ryan's gaze snapped to me quick and controlled. I gave him a look that said, don't. He didn't speak yet. He just stood there, jaw tight. Brittany kept going because she could sense the power in the moment. You know, she said, laughing lightly. Megan used to act like she was going to be some kind of big military hero. But she couldn't hack it, so now she does the safe stuff. My mom let out a small sound like she'd been punched. The words hit me in a weird way. Not because they were new, because she'd said them out loud at a wedding in front of the groom like she was proud of it. I looked at Brittany and felt something in me go still. Ryan's posture changed. Subtle but unmistakable. His shoulders squared. His eyes hardened and he took a slow breath, like he was holding back a response that was already lined up. Brittany wasn't watching him. She was watching me. She wanted me to react. She wanted me to be the dramatic one. I didn't give her that. I just said evenly, we're done. Brittany's smile twitched. Megan. No, I said. I'm not doing this. She opened her mouth again, and that was when my dad appeared behind her, like the final boss in a bad video game. Frank stepped in with that confident look he gets when he thinks he's restoring order. What's going on? He asked, eyes on me, not Brittany. Brittany slid right into his side like she belonged there. Nothing, she said quickly. Megan's upset because we were joking. My dad sighed, already annoyed. Megan, come on. Don't do this tonight. I stared at him. Don't do what? Make it weird, he said. Ryan doesn't need to hear about. He waved his hand vaguely toward me. All that. Ryan's eyes flicked to my dad, then back to me. My dad didn't notice. He was too busy doing what he always did, deciding I was the problem before he heard the full sentence. I felt Ryan shift beside me like he was about to step forward. I caught his eye again and gave him the smallest shake of my head. He didn't move. But he didn't relax either. Brittany lifted her flute and laughed softly like she'd won. See, Dad gets it. Let's just have fun. Ryan's gaze stayed on Brittany for a beat too long, and I knew right then Brittany had finally pushed the joke past the point where it could stay a joke. Ryan's stare didn't soften, and that's when I decided I needed air more than I needed to win an argument with my own DNA. I stepped back, turned slightly like I was headed to the restroom, and walked away before Brittany could grab the moment and turn it into another story about my attitude. My mom's eyes followed me with that helpless look, like she wanted to help, but didn't know how without making herself a target. I kept my pace steady. No storming, no slamming doors. Just a clean exit. I made it to the side hallway again, the one with the service door, and the muffled music, and I leaned my hand against the wall for a second. My heart was beating too fast for someone who wasn't running. That's the thing about being calm on the outside. Your body still keeps score. Footsteps came behind me. I expected Brittany. I expected my mom. I expected someone to tell me to let it go. Instead, it was Ryan. He stopped a few feet away, far enough to give me space, close enough to make it clear he wasn't leaving. Megan, he said quietly. I didn't look at him right away. You should be with Emily. I will be, he said. But I'm not letting that slide. I exhaled and finally faced him. Ryan? He lifted a hand, not rude, just firm. I know you told me to do nothing. I'm trying. I really am. But your sister just said you couldn't hack military life. Yeah, I said flatly. That's her favorite line. His jaw tightened. She said it like it was a fact. She's been saying it for years, I replied. Ryan held my gaze, and for the first time since I arrived, I felt like someone was actually seeing the situation instead of just watching for entertainment. How does your family not know? He asked again, quieter. They're talking about you like you're not who you are. I let out a short laugh that had no humor in it. They know enough. They just don't respect it. Ryan shook his head. But your dad believes Brittany, I finished for him. Because it's easier than admitting he didn't pay attention. Ryan looked like he wanted to argue, then stopped. He seemed to realize he was stepping into a family system he couldn't fix in a hallway. Megan, he said, I've sat in briefs with you. You ran those rooms. You're not a desk job. You're you. I leaned back against the wall again. Please don't do the you're amazing thing. I don't need a pep talk. His lips pressed together. It's not a pep talk. It's a fact. I looked at him for a moment, then said what I hadn't said clearly enough before. Ryan, this stays between us, I repeated. No public corrections, no big speeches. Emily does not deserve that. Ryan's eyes narrowed. So you're just going to let them keep lying? I kept my voice steady. I'm going to let the wedding be a wedding. He stared at me like he couldn't decide if that was noble or insane. Then he said, can I ask you something without you thinking I'm judging you? I shrugged. Sure. Why didn't you ever tell them? He asked. About command. About anything. I didn't love that question because it sounded like blame, even when people didn't mean it that way. So I gave him the simplest answer. Because every time I shared something, they made it smaller, I said. So I stopped sharing. Ryan's face tightened. That's awful. It's practical, I corrected. They can't mock what they don't understand. And they don't understand what they don't hear. Ryan's expression shifted slightly, like he was putting pieces together. Your sister, he said slowly. She's not just joking, she's trying to define you. Yes, I said. Thank you. That's the word. Define. Ryan stared at the floor for a second, then back at me. And you let her. I pushed off the wall sharper than I meant to. No, I endure her. He blinked. I'm sorry, that came out wrong. It's fine, I said, then softened my tone. Look, Brittany feeds on reaction. She wants me to correct her so she can call me arrogant. She wants me to argue so she can say I ruined the mood. She wants me emotional because then she gets to be the calm one. Ryan's eyes flashed. So the only way to win is not to play. In that room, I said, nodding toward the reception, yes. Ryan's shoulders lifted as he breathed in. Then he exhaled slowly, like he was forcing himself to accept an order he didn't like. Okay, he said. I won't blow up your family at my wedding. Thank you, I said. He looked at me, then said, but I need to understand something. I raised an eyebrow. He lowered his voice. Does your sister know I know? I hesitated. Not yet. Ryan nodded once. She will. She's watching. I didn't argue. Yes. Ryan shifted his weight, restless. So what's the plan? There isn't one, I said. I'll leave early. That's my plan. Ryan's mouth tightened. And you're okay with that? I stared at him. No, but I'm capable of it. He held my gaze, then said, Megan, your dad just told a room full of people you couldn't hack military life. And Brittany just repeated it, I added. Ryan's eyes darkened. In front of me. I almost smiled. Yeah, she's bold. Or careless, he said. I didn't respond. Because that was the first hopeful thing I'd heard all night. Careless people make mistakes. Ryan's phone buzzed in his pocket. He checked it quickly, then grimaced. Emily's looking for me, he said. Like he was annoyed at the timing, even though he loved his wife. We're supposed to do pictures with her aunt. I nodded. Go, be the groom. He looked at me like he wanted to do more. Like he wanted to pull out his uniform ID and slap it on a table. Instead, he said, I'm sorry you're dealing with this. I shrugged. I've dealt with worse. He gave a short, humorless laugh. Yeah, I believe that. Ryan moved toward the door, then paused with his hand on the handle. One more thing, he said. I looked at him. He spoke carefully, like he was choosing words that wouldn't trigger alarms. You're still the commanding officer, right? Not just selected. Yes, I said, in command. He nodded, as if hearing it again made it even more absurd that people were calling me support staff. Okay, he said quietly. Then I'm going to treat you like it. I frowned slightly. What does that mean? It means, he said, I'm not going to stand there and let someone disrespect my CO like it's party entertainment. I felt my pulse jump. Ryan! He held up his hands. I'm not saying I'm going to make a scene. I'm saying I'm going to be careful. And if I have to choose between being polite and being honest, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. I looked at him and felt a strange mix of gratitude and dread, because Ryan was right, and Brittany was watching. Ryan opened the door and stepped back into the noise and light of the reception. I stayed in the hallway a beat longer, listening to the music and the laughter, trying to decide whether I wanted to disappear or finally be seen. Then I walked out again. Brittany had repositioned herself closer to the head table, like she was setting up for the next round. And when she spotted me returning, she lifted her glass in a little toast of her own, smiling, like she already knew exactly how this was going to end. Brittany lifted her glass, like she was cheering for me, and I knew that was her version of a warning. I walked back to my table anyway, because sitting was the only thing keeping me from doing something dumb like grabbing the mic and announcing my resume to a room full of people who didn't deserve it. I took my seat, picked up my water, and stared at the condensation like it was a life coach. Across the room, Brittany leaned into a cluster of relatives near the head table. She wasn't even subtle now. She kept glancing over at me, then at Ryan, then back at her audience, like she was lining up the shot. My dad had moved closer to her too. He looked relaxed, like the whole thing was handled, like he'd made the point he wanted to make. My mom hovered near the dance floor with Emily's mom smiling too hard. Ryan was doing groom duties, pictures, hugs, congratulations, moving through the room with polite control. But every time he passed within sight of Brittany, his posture tightened. He wasn't staring at her like he wanted a fight. He was watching her like he was tracking a problem. And Brittany noticed. She didn't like being watched. She liked being the one holding the spotlight. So she decided to take it back. It happened fast. Brittany waved at someone, and suddenly, my Aunt Carol was walking toward my table like a missile with a handbag. Carol is the kind of woman who thinks being direct is a personality. She's also Brittany's biggest fan. Mostly because Brittany flatters her, and I don't. Carol stopped at my table and smiled like she'd been assigned a task. "Megan," she said loudly, "come over here. We want you in a photo." I looked around. A photo of what? The family, she said, as if I was being difficult on purpose. The Caldwell side. I glanced toward the head table and saw Brittany standing there, phone already in hand, framed by string lights like she was about to host a game show. Of course. I stood up because refusing would become a story too. I walked over, and as soon as I got close, Brittany stepped in front of me like she was directing traffic. "There you are," she said brightly. "Okay, everyone, squeeze in. Megan, stand right here." She placed me in the center, slightly forward. Not close enough to look included, just close enough to be visible. Like a prop. Ryan was nearby with Emily, who looked happy, but tired. Emily's eyes flicked to me, and then to Brittany, and I saw her face tighten for a second. She knew something was off, but she didn't know how to stop it without blowing up her own night. Brittany lifted her phone. Smile. The flash went off. Then Brittany didn't lower the phone. Instead, she turned her head toward Ryan and called out in a voice that carried across half the room. "Ryan, come here for a second." Ryan looked up. He hesitated, then walked over because ignoring your own name at your wedding is a little hard. Emily followed confusion on her face. Brittany beamed. "Ryan, meet more of the family. You've met Megan already, right?" Ryan's eyes flicked to me. "Yes." Brittany clapped her hands once like she was thrilled. "Perfect. Because I was just telling everyone how funny it is that you two are both Navy." A couple of people chuckled. Some people leaned in. I could feel the air shift, like the room was changing from celebration to entertainment. Ryan's expression stayed neutral. "Okay." Brittany angled her body toward the group, like she was setting a stage. "So Ryan, you're a real officer, right? Like you go out on the boat and do all the serious stuff." Emily's mouth opened slightly. Brittany waved her off. "I'm just asking. I'm trying to understand. Megan never explains anything," I said evenly, "because you don't let me." Brittany's smile twitched. "See that tone again?" My dad chuckled from behind Brittany. All right, he said like this was all harmless teasing. Brittany kept going. "Anyway," she said, looking at Ryan, "Megan's Navy job is different. She's more on the administrative side." Ryan didn't respond right away. He just stared at Brittany, and I could see the math happening in his face. Brittany mistook his silence for permission. "She works at the base," Brittany continued. "Schedules reports. You know, support stuff. Which is fine. Someone has to do it." I felt my jaw tighten, but I kept my voice calm. "Drop it." Brittany laughed lightly. "Drop what I'm explaining. People get confused." Ryan's eyes flicked to me again, and I gave him a look that said, "Don't." He didn't move, but his shoulders squared a fraction. Brittany leaned closer to Ryan, lowering her voice, just enough to act like she was sharing a private joke, but still loud enough for the nearest table to hear. "Megan used to act like she was going to be this big military hero," she said, smiling. "But she couldn't hack military life, so now she does the safe stuff." There it was again, her favorite line. This time with an audience and the groom as her trophy. Emily's face went pale. She looked at me like she wanted to apologize and didn't know how. My mom's eyes went wide, and she took a step forward like she might actually intervene. Then she stopped because intervening meant picking a side. My dad laughed, not a big laugh, a supportive laugh, the kind that says good one. That laugh did something to me. Not anger, not hurt, something colder. Because Brittany didn't just say it, my dad endorsed it. Ryan's posture changed in a way that was unmistakable if you've spent any time around military people. His spine straightened. His chin lifted slightly. He didn't puff up. He locked in. Brittany noticed and smirked like she'd just proved a point. "You get it," she said to Ryan, nodding toward my dad. "Dad's always been honest about Megan's limits." I spoke before Ryan could. "Brittany, stop." Brittany's eyes flashed. "Why?" "Because you don't want your little base job exposed," my dad sighed. "Megan, you don't have to be defensive." I turned to him. "I'm not being defensive. I'm asking you to stop letting her talk about me like I'm not standing here." He frowned like I'd insulted him. "It's a joke." "It's not a joke if you keep repeating it," I said. Brittany lifted her hands dramatically. "Okay, fine. I'm sorry. I didn't realize we were all so fragile." A few people laughed again. The wrong kind. I looked around and saw faces watching us, curious, entertained, uncomfortable. No one was stopping it. No one was saying, "Hey, this is a wedding." The room wasn't a room anymore. It was a stage, and Brittany was holding the script. Ryan took a slow breath through his nose. His eyes stayed on Brittany, then flicked to my dad, then back to me. I could almost hear him deciding. I stepped half a pace closer to Ryan and lowered my voice. "Don't," I said. He didn't answer me. He didn't nod. He didn't promise anything. He looked at me like he respected my request, and like he didn't know if he could honor it. Brittany, sensing the tension, leaned back into her role, with a satisfied smile. "Anyway," she said loudly, clapping once. "Let's not be dramatic. Ryan, you should tell Megan about your job. Maybe she can learn something." That was the line that finally made Ryan's jaw tighten so hard I thought he might crack a tooth. My dad chuckled again like he was proud of Brittany's humor. And in that exact second, Ryan's eyes shifted past me, toward the head table, like he'd just picked his route. He didn't say anything. He didn't announce it. He just turned his body slightly, and I knew he was about to walk straight into the one place Brittany and my dad felt safest, right in front of everyone. Ryan turned and started walking, and I followed without thinking, because my body understood the danger before my brain caught up. I reached for his sleeve, not grabbing him just enough to get his attention. "Ryan," I said under my breath. He didn't stop. He didn't even look at me. He just kept moving with that calm, locked-in focus you see right before someone makes a decision that can't be undone. I matched his pace. "Please," I said, "not here." He finally glanced at me, and his expression wasn't angry. It was controlled, almost tired. Then where he asked quietly, without slowing down. I didn't have an answer, because there was no place where Brittany wouldn't turn it into a performance. The only difference was how many witnesses she'd have. Ryan reached the head table. My dad was standing with a drink in his hand, laughing with two uncles like he'd just delivered the best toast of his life. Brittany was right beside him, angled toward the room, soaking up attention like she was paid by the compliment. Ryan stopped in front of them. My dad looked up and smiled that broad, friendly smile he uses on strangers. The one that says, "I'm a great guy, and you're lucky to meet me." Ryan, Dad said. "My man, having a good night." Brittany grinned. "Hey, Groom." Ryan didn't smile back. He didn't frown either. He just stood there, shoulders squared, voice steady. "Sir," Ryan said, "can I speak with you for a moment?" My dad's smile faltered slightly, then recovered. "Sure. What's up?" Ryan lowered his voice, but not enough. "Not in a crowded room with polished wood floors and people who live for a whisper. I think there's been a misunderstanding about Megan's naval career," he said. Brittany's smile tightened. "What misunderstanding?" Ryan kept his eyes on my dad. "The way you described her job tonight isn't accurate." My dad chuckled like Ryan was teasing him. "Oh, come on. It's family. We joke." Ryan didn't laugh. "Respectfully, sir, it didn't sound like a joke." That word respectfully made my dad straighten. In my father's mind, respectfully is what you say right before you tell someone they're wrong. Dad's eyes narrowed. "Ryan, are you offended on Megan's behalf?" "I'm concerned," Ryan said. "Because what was said about her." Brittany leaned in, sweet as sugar. "Ryan, you're new. You don't know how Megan is. She gets sensitive." Ryan's gaze flicked to Brittany for half a second. Not angry, just assessing, like he'd finally spotted the person holding the steering wheel. Then he looked back at my dad. "Sir, I've worked with Commander Caldwell." My dad blinked. "Commander." Brittany's eyes flashed and she jumped in fast. "He means like, that's how they talk at work. They call everyone Commander. It's a Navy thing." Ryan's jaw tightened. He kept his voice calm. "No, ma'am. I mean her rank." The air shifted around us. It wasn't silent yet, but nearby conversation slowed, like people sensed something more interesting than chicken and dancing was happening at the head table. My dad stared at Ryan like he'd spoken a foreign language. "Her rank is..." "What?" Ryan took a breath. "Commander 05. Brittany let out a laugh that sounded too sharp. "Okay, that's not..." Ryan didn't look at her. He addressed my dad again. "Sir, with respect, Megan is not in an administrative support role. She's a submarine officer. She's in command." My dad's face went through a few expressions in quick order. Confusion, disbelief. Then something defensive like he'd been accused of bad parenting in public and couldn't figure out why. "That's not possible," Dad said. Ryan's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "It is, sir." Brittany cut in, voice louder now, trying to take control. "Ryan, I don't know what Megan told you, but she exaggerates. She's always done that." I felt my jaw clench so hard my teeth hurt. Ryan turned slightly toward Brittany for the first time. Ma'am, he said, measured. I'm not repeating something she told me. I'm telling you what I know from work. Brittany's smile faltered for the first time all night, just a crack. My dad's eyes moved between Ryan and Brittany, and I could see his brain searching for the version of reality that would let him stay right. Uncle Mike leaned in from Dad's side. What's going on? Aunt Patricia stopped mid-sentence with someone else and turned her head. Emily's mom drifted closer, face tense. Emily herself was a few feet away now, watching with wide eyes, like she couldn't decide if she should step in or pretend she didn't see it. The room had started to notice. My dad lowered his voice, trying to pull it back into something private. Ryan, this is not the time. Ryan didn't budge. Sir, the time was before your toast. The time was before your daughter got pointed at like a joke. My dad's cheeks reddened. I wasn't pointing her like a joke. Ryan's tone stayed even. You said she couldn't hack military life. You said she does desk work. You said she's not like real officers. My dad opened his mouth, then closed it, because he couldn't deny it. Too many people had heard him. Too many people were now pretending they hadn't. Brittany stepped closer to my dad's voice, suddenly soft. Dad, don't listen to this. He's confused. Ryan's eyes flicked to me, and I realized he'd finally noticed I'd been standing there the whole time. I hadn't spoken yet. I was still trying to keep the wedding from turning into a public trial. But the room had shifted. The trial had started without me. Dad looked at me, then face tight. Megan, he said slowly, what is this? The crowd around us grew by inches. People do that thing where they pretend they're just walking by, but really they're circling. I felt my throat tighten, but I kept my voice calm. It's not this, Dad. It's my life. His eyes widened slightly. Ian is saying you're in command. Brittany laughed again, trying to break the tension. He's being dramatic. Ryan ignored her. Sir, she is the commanding officer. My dad's face went pale. Of what? Ryan paused for a fraction of a second, like he was checking himself. Like he understood there were lines you don't cross even when you're furious. Then he answered in a way that didn't give anything away. An attack submarine, he said. That's all I'll say here. That was enough to make the word desk job die in midair. Someone behind me whispered, Wait, what? Another voice murmured, No way. My dad looked like he might sit down. He didn't. He just stood there staring at me, like he was seeing a stranger wearing my face. Megan, he said again, softer this time. Is that true? I could feel the entire room leaning in. Brittany's breath quickened beside my dad. Emily's hand hovered near her mouth. My mom looked like she was about to cry. And in that moment, I realized something uncomfortable. This wasn't just about my dad's ignorance. This was about Brittany's control. She had built a story about me for years, and my family had accepted it because it was easy. Because it let them keep me in the box that made sense to them. Now the box was cracking. I met my dad's eyes and kept my voice steady. Yes, I said. It's true. Brittany's smile vanished completely. My dad's mouth opened, but nothing came out. And Ryan still standing there like a wall between me and the worst version of my family. Took a slow breath, turned slightly toward the watching crowd, and spoke clearly enough that the nearest tables could hear. With respect, he said, I think you owe Commander Caldwell an apology. The word apology hit the air like someone dropped a glass, and for a second nobody moved. My dad stared at Ryan like Ryan had just insulted his entire bloodline. Brittany stared at me like I'd committed a crime by existing outside her story. The people hovering nearby suddenly found the ceiling interesting, because watching family drama is fun, until you realize you might be asked to pick a side. I kept my face calm, because panic is a gift Brittany doesn't deserve. Ryan, I said quietly, not as a scolding, just as a boundary. He looked at me. Ma'am, he said, then stopped himself and corrected it. Megan, I nodded once. That was enough. I didn't need him to fight for me. I needed him to stop giving my sister more oxygen. My dad cleared his throat. This is ridiculous, he said, voice shaking slightly. If Megan was whatever you're claiming, we would know. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. You would know, I said, if you ever asked. My dad flinched like I'd slapped him. Brittany jumped in fast, because silence is where the truth lives. Oh my God, she said, with a laugh that was way too high. Here we go. Megan's doing her thing. My thing, I repeated. Brittany gestured broadly at the people nearby. The dramatic reveal. The look at me, I'm important thing. I looked around at the faces watching us. Emily looked terrified. My mom looked like her heart was breaking. Uncle Mike looked uncomfortable. Aunt Patricia looked like she was mentally rewriting her memory of every family barbecue. I didn't feel important. I felt tired. Brittany, I said evenly, the only person making this dramatic is you. Brittany's eyes flashed. Excuse me? You've been talking about my job all night, I said. You've been talking about it for years. So don't pretend you're shocked someone finally corrected you. My dad stepped forward, voice tight. Megan, why didn't you tell us? I held his gaze. Because when I did tell you things, you laughed. Or you minimized it. Or Brittany turned it into a joke, and you let her. My dad's jaw worked like he wanted to argue, but couldn't find the right angle. That's not fair, he said. I gave him a small nod. You're right, it's not fair. Brittany scoffed. You're acting like we abused you. Dad made a toast. It was funny. Ryan's expression hardened again, and I could feel him ready to jump back in. I cut that off by keeping my voice calm and direct. It wasn't funny, I said. And you know that. Brittany's smile returned thin and sharp. I know you can't take a joke. I looked her in the eye. A joke ends. You don't. That landed. I saw it land. Even Brittany's little circle of supporters shifted uncomfortable. My mom stepped forward finally. Brittany, she said softly, stop. Brittany's head snapped toward her. Mom, don't. My mom's voice shook, but she didn't back down. I'm asking you to stop. Brittany looked stunned, like she'd just watched gravity reverse. My dad didn't notice. He was still staring at me, fixated on the part that made him look bad. So, what are you? Then he asked. What do you actually do? That question after 2 decades would have been funny if it hadn't been so pathetic. I'm a submarine officer, I said. I'm an unrestricted line officer. I'm qualified. I've been in for 22 years. My dad blinked. 22. Yes, I said 22. He looked at Brittany, as if Brittany could translate. Brittany opened her mouth, then closed it. For once, she didn't have a script ready. I continued keeping it simple, because the moment you over-explain people, stop listening, and start judging your tone. I'm a commander, I said. I'm the commanding officer of an attack submarine. A few people gasped softly. Not loud, just enough. Aunt Patricia whispered, oh my God. Uncle Mike muttered, no kidding. My dad's face drained of color. That's not, he swallowed. That's not a desk job. No, I said, it isn't. Brittany tried to laugh it off again. Okay, but like what does that mean? You drive it, you. Stop, my mom snapped louder than she probably intended. Brittany froze. I looked at my mom, with a flicker of surprise. She looked embarrassed, but she held her ground. My dad turned back to me. Why didn't you tell us you were in command? I didn't soften it. If I softened it, he'd hear comfort instead of truth. Because you decided a long time ago what I was capable of, I said. And you never updated your opinion. My dad's eyes shone with something that might have been shame, or might have been anger that shame was happening in public. That's not true, he said weakly. I nodded toward Brittany. Then why did you let her say I couldn't hack military life? Why did you laugh? My dad looked at Brittany, then away. Brittany recovered enough to go on offense. Dad laughed, because it was true, she said quickly. Megan always acts like she's better than us, and we're allowed to joke. Allowed, I repeated. Brittany's voice rose just slightly. Yes. Allowed. She disappears for months, shows up twice a year, acts like she's too good for family stuff, and then expects us to treat her like some hero. I stared at her. I don't expect anything from you. That's not what it looks like, Brittany snapped. Ryan stepped forward half a pace, then stopped himself, jaw tight. Emily touched his arm, eyes wide silently, asking him not to turn the reception into a brawl. I kept my voice level. Brittany, you've been trying to keep me small since I was 19. Brittany's face twisted. That is not true. It is, I said. You liked it when people clapped for you. You didn't like it when they clapped for me. So you found a way to make sure nobody clapped. The crowd around us went quiet in that uncomfortable way where everyone realizes this isn't just a random argument. It's a pattern. My dad's voice cracked. Megan, I didn't know. I looked at him. You didn't want to know. He flinched again. Brittany's eyes darted around the circle. She could feel the room slipping away from her. She tried one last move. She turned to the nearest relatives and laughed like she was inviting them to join her. Okay, everyone, she said, bright and forced. This is getting ridiculous. Megan's obviously had a long day and she's... No, my mom said firm now. Brittany, you're the one making it ridiculous. Brittany's mouth fell open. Emily finally spoke, voice shaking. Brittany, please. Not tonight. Brittany snapped her head toward Emily, like she couldn't believe Emily dared to say her name without permission. Ryan turned slightly toward Emily, protective, then looked back at me, eyes steady. He didn't look like a groom anymore. He looked like an officer trying to keep a situation from becoming unsafe. My dad stared at me again, and I saw him trying to reconcile the daughter in his head with the woman standing in front of him. "So you're really in command?" he said quietly. "Yes," I said. "And I didn't tell you because every time I tried to share anything about my life, you all treated it like it was up for debate." Brittany's voice went sharp. "So you're blaming us now?" I met her stare. "I'm holding you responsible." That was the line that made Brittany's face change. Not anger, not outrage, fear. Because responsibility is the one thing Brittany can't joke her way out of. I didn't stay for the reaction. I didn't wait for the next comment. I looked at Emily, gave her a small apologetic nod, and stepped back from the circle. Then I was done being the entertainment. I turned and walked toward the doors, pushing through the warm noise of the reception, feeling dozens of eyes on my back. Behind me, I heard my dad say my name again, softer, like he didn't know how to speak to me anymore. I didn't stop. Outside, the night air hit my face, cool and clean, and for the first time all evening, I could breathe. Then the door opened behind me, and footsteps followed steady, deliberate, like someone who wasn't done yet. The gravel under my shoes crunched as I walked farther from the doors, like distance could scrub the last 20 minutes off my skin. The venue had a little patio area with a few heaters, and those flimsy white chairs nobody actually sits in. Beyond that was the parking lot, dark rows of cars, and the soft hum of the highway in the distance. It was the first place all night that didn't smell like champagne and performance. I stopped near the edge of the patio and pressed my palms against the railing for a second, breathing slow. I wasn't trying to calm down. I was trying to stay functional. The door behind me opened again. Footsteps, not rushed, not hesitant, intentional. I didn't turn right away, because if it was Brittany, I didn't trust myself not to finally say something that would get quoted at Thanksgiving for the next decade. But the steps stopped a respectful distance behind me. "Megan," Ryan said. I turned. He was outside now, Tuck's jacket open tie slightly loosened, like the night had finally found a way to touch him. The music from inside was a muffled pulse, like a heartbeat in another room. Ryan didn't smile. He didn't look guilty. He looked locked in. "Ryan," I said quietly, "you should go back." "I will," he said. "I needed to make sure you're okay." I let out a short breath. Define okay. He nodded once, like he appreciated the honesty. Then his posture shifted. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't showy. It was automatic. Ryan snapped to attention. Straight spine, feet set, chin level, and then he saluted. A clean, sharp salute like we were on a pier instead of outside a wedding venue in the suburbs. For a split second, I just stared at him, because my brain couldn't decide if I was supposed to correct him, or thank him, or tell him he was insane. "Commander," he said, voice steady. "Permission to speak?" My throat tightened. "Ryan," I said under my breath, "this is not necessary." "It is," he said calmly. "And it's not for them. It's for you." I didn't answer immediately, because the truth was, a salute feels different when you've spent years being treated like a joke by the people who should have known you best. I looked past him and saw the side door still propped open. A couple of people had drifted toward it. Curiosity has a strong pull. Emily was near the doorway, eyes wide, one hand covering her mouth, like she couldn't believe her reception had turned into this. My mom stood beside her, pale and rigid. And Brittany, of course, was right behind them, hugging the frame of the doorway like a stage curtain. People stared. Not everyone, but enough. Enough to make the image stick. The groom in a tux, standing at attention, saluting me like it was the most natural thing in the world. Brittany's face changed when she saw it. Her smile didn't just fade. It got replaced by something tight and dangerous. Because she could spin words. She couldn't spin that. Ryan dropped his salute and stepped a little closer, keeping his voice low, like he was trying to keep this from turning into a public announcement. "Ma'am," he said, then corrected himself again. "Megan. I'm sorry I didn't recognize you right away. And I'm sorry I let it go as long as I did." "You didn't do this," I said. Ryan's eyes flicked toward the doorway. "They did. But you've been carrying it." I shook my head once. "I asked you not to get involved." "I know," he said. "And I tried. But your sister said you couldn't hack military life, and your dad laughed like it was a joke. I couldn't stand there like a decoration." My mom stepped onto the patio, then hands clenched at her sides. "Megan," she said softly. I looked at her. "Mom," she swallowed. I didn't know it was this bad." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was always this bad. It just wasn't always this public. Before I could answer, Brittany stepped outside too. She moved fast heels, clicking shoulders squared like she was about to regain control by force. "What is this?" Brittany demanded, voice sharp. "Are you serious right now?" Ryan turned his head slightly toward her, calm and unreadable. Brittany pointed at him. "You're making a scene at your own wedding to do what impress her." Ryan's jaw tightened. "No, ma'am." Brittany scoffed. "Don't call me ma'am. We're family." Ryan's expression didn't change. "With respect, you just tried to humiliate her in front of your family." Brittany's eyes flashed. "Humiliate? Oh my God, she's so dramatic." I was joking. I looked at Brittany and felt something settle in me. Not rage, clarity. "You keep saying that," I said evenly. "But you don't laugh when it's over." Brittany's face twisted. "What does that even mean?" "It means you didn't want a joke," I said. "You wanted a verdict." My mom inhaled sharply. Emily stayed in the doorway, frozen like she was watching a car skid toward a wall and couldn't look away. Brittany turned to my mom, instantly switching tactics. "Mom, tell her she's doing too much." My mom looked at Brittany and didn't move. That was new. Brittany's eyes narrowed. "Seriously?" My mom's voice came out shaky but firm. "Brittany, you need to stop." Brittany stared at her like she'd just heard betrayal. Then she swung back to me, voice rising. "So you're really going to act like you're some victim? You disappear for months, you show up, and you don't talk to anyone, and then you expect us to worship you because you have a title." I didn't flinch. "I don't expect anything from you." "Yes, you do," Brittany snapped. "You want everyone to think you're better." I shook my head once. "No, Brittany. You want everyone to think you're better? That's why you keep trying to make me smaller." Brittany's mouth opened, then closed, because that hit closer than she wanted. Ryan stood quietly beside me, not talking over me, just present. That mattered more than any speech. My dad appeared at the doorway, then looking like he'd aged 5 years in 10 minutes. "Megan," he said, voice rough, "please." I looked at him. "Please what?" He swallowed. "Come back inside. We can talk." "Talk," I repeated, letting the word hang there. "You mean you can explain why you laughed?" He flinched. Brittany stepped toward him, like she was trying to grab him back into her orbit. "Dad, don't," Brittany hissed. My dad looked at Brittany, then at me, and for the first time tonight, he looked uncertain. Like he wasn't sure who he was supposed to believe anymore. Brittany noticed. Panic flashed in her eyes. So she went for her favorite move. She tried to make me the bad guy. "This is what she does," Brittany said loudly, turning slightly so the people watching could hear her. "She makes everything about her. She always has. She can't just let Emily have her day. She has to show off." Emily's face crumpled. That did it. Not because Brittany insulted me. Because she dragged Emily into it like a shield. I stepped forward half a pace, still calm, and looked Brittany straight in the eye. "Say one more thing about Emily," I said, voice low, "and you won't be in my life at all." Brittany scoffed, but it came out shaky. "Oh, please. You're threatening me now." "I'm not threatening you," I said. "I'm telling you the boundary." She laughed, but it wasn't confident. "You can't cut me off. I'm your sister." I nodded once. "Watch me." The patio went quiet in a way that felt heavier than any shouting. My dad stared. My mom's eyes filled. Ryan stood perfectly still. Brittany's lips parted, searching for a joke, a twist, anything that would put her back on top. And for the first time, she didn't have one. I kept my eyes on Brittany until she looked away first, and that tiny moment told me everything I needed to know. Inside, the music was still going. People were still dancing. Someone was probably still taking selfies under the happily ever after sign, like nothing had happened. That's the magic of weddings. They keep moving even when the family is on fire in the parking lot. Ryan shifted beside me and lowered his voice. "Megan, do you want me to walk you to your car?" I shook my head. "No. Go back in. This is your wedding." His jaw tightened. "It doesn't feel like it anymore." "It will," I said, "if you go back in and be with Emily." Emily was still in the doorway, pale and shaken. I walked toward her slowly, careful, not to make her feel like she'd been pulled into a fight she didn't ask for. "Emily," I said softly. She looked at me like she was trying not to cry. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know." "I know," I said. "You didn't do anything wrong." She swallowed. "Brittany, she's never been like this with me. She's like this when she thinks she's losing," I said, then immediately regretted saying anything that made Emily feel like she had to pick sides. Emily's eyes darted toward Brittany, who was now standing stiffly near the patio heater, pretending she wasn't panicking. I just wanted everyone to have a good night, Emily said. You can, I told her. Go back in. I'll be fine. Emily nodded slowly, and then she did something that surprised me. She reached out and squeezed my hand. Thank you for coming, she said. For real. That was the only part of the night that felt uncomplicated. Ryan stepped forward and took Emily's hand. I'm sorry, he told, her voice low, eyes earnest. I didn't want to do any of that. Emily gave him a shaky smile. I know. Then she glanced at me again. Please don't disappear. I nodded. I won't. That was the best promise I could make. Emily and Ryan turned and went back inside together. The door closed behind them, and the music got louder again, like the venue was sighing in relief. My mom stayed outside with me. She looked older under the patio lights, like the last hour had pulled the truth out of her in a way she couldn't tuck back in. I should have stopped her, my mom said quietly. I didn't jump to comfort her. Not because I wanted her to hurt, but because she needed to sit in it for a second. She'd been sitting in Keep the Peace for 20 years. She could handle 10 minutes of honesty. Yes, I said. You should have. My mom flinched, then nodded. I know. Brittany scoffed behind us. Wow, she said loud enough to be heard. So now you're both teaming up on me. My mom turned toward her. Brittany, please. Brittany threw her hands up. No, don't please me. Megan shows up and makes a scene, and suddenly I'm the villain. I kept my tone flat. You've been the villain since you decided my life was yours to narrate. Brittany's face twisted. Oh my God. Listen to you. You love this. You love making me look bad. I nodded toward the doorway. You made yourself look bad in there. I didn't do anything except say the truth. Brittany stepped closer, eyes sharp. The truth. The truth is you think you're better than everyone because you have some rank. I didn't raise my voice. The truth is I didn't even want to talk about my rank. You forced it. Brittany's laugh came out tight. Sure. You forced it. Like you didn't enjoy everyone staring. I looked at her for a long second. Brittany, you're the one who needs an audience. I'm the one who kept trying to leave. My dad stepped outside, then slower than before, like he was walking into a room where he didn't know the rules anymore. He didn't have his confident smile. He looked worn out. Megan, he said, can we talk just us? Brittany snapped, Dad, don't. She's manipulating you. My dad didn't look at Brittany this time. He looked at me. That was new too. I waited. My dad swallowed. I didn't know, he said again, but it sounded different now. Less like an excuse, more like regret. I didn't let him off the hook. You didn't ask. His eyes closed for a second. You're right. I didn't ask. Brittany scoffed. Oh my God. Dad, you're seriously doing this right now. My dad's head turned slightly. Brittany, stop. Her mouth dropped open. Excuse me? I said stop, my dad, repeated, voice firmer. You've been running your mouth all night. Brittany stared at him like he'd slapped her. You're taking her side, Brittany said, voice rising. My dad's shoulders sagged. I'm taking reality's side. Brittany's eyes flashed with anger, and for a second, I thought she might finally explode the way she always pretended she never would. Instead, she did what she always did when she couldn't control a room anymore. She went for guilt. You're all blaming me, she said, voice suddenly shaky. I was just trying to keep things normal. Megan always comes in acting like she's above us, and, Brittany, I cut in calm. Normal for you is me being smaller than you? Her lips parted, and she looked genuinely stunned, like she couldn't believe I'd said it out loud without apologizing afterward. My dad exhaled hard. Megan, I'm sorry. I looked at him. For what? He winced because that question forced him to be specific. For laughing. For letting Brittany speak for you. For believing the easiest version of you instead of actually knowing you. My mom turned away, wiping her eyes. Brittany's voice went sharp again. So what? Now you're all going to act like Megan's the hero and I'm trash. I kept my eyes on her. This isn't about hero or trash. It's about boundaries. Brittany scoffed. You and your boundaries. Yes, I said. Me and my boundaries. I pulled my car keys out of my clutch. The simple motion felt like closing a door. I'm done being discussed, I said. I'm done being your joke. I'm done being your excuse for why you feel behind in life. Brittany's face reddened. You don't know my life. I know what you do to mine, I said, and it stops. My dad took a step closer, careful. Megan, please don't cut us off. I looked at him. I'm not cutting you off. I'm cutting off the behavior. Brittany laughed bitterly. That's the same thing. It's not, I said. You can be in my life if you can be respectful. If you can't, then you won't. My dad nodded slowly, like he was hearing a language he should have learned years ago. My mom whispered, "We'll do better." I didn't promise anything back. Promises without change are just noise, and my family had made enough noise to last a lifetime. I walked toward the parking lot, the gravel crunching under my shoes again. My dad called my name once softer this time, like he wasn't trying to control me, just reach me. I turned my head slightly. "Ask me questions," I said. "If you actually want to know, not to judge, not to compare, to know." He nodded, eyes wet. "I will." Behind him, Brittany stood frozen like someone had finally taken the microphone away, and she didn't know who she was without it. I got to my car and opened the door. The cold air inside hit my face, and it felt like relief. As I slid into the driver's seat, my phone buzzed with a new message. I glanced at the screen and saw Ryan's name. What I learned is simple family drama doesn't stop because you keep the peace. It stops when you stop negotiating your dignity. In a lot of revenge stories, people think revenge has to be loud, some big speech, some public meltdown, some moment designed for applause. But real family revenge stories usually look quieter than that. It's telling the truth once without begging to be believed. It's setting a boundary without explaining it 5 different ways. It's walking away from people who only feel tall when you're made small. My sister didn't lose because I embarrassed her. She lost because she couldn't control the story anymore, and I finally stopped letting my own family define my Navy career like it was a rumor. If you're into revenge stories, family revenge stories, and real-life family drama, where the truth hits harder than yelling, hit subscribe and stick around. I post stories like this all the time, and you don't want to miss the next one.